and ensure that the planning commission has completed a legally defensible record before holding the public hearing. A new hearing date will be scheduled and notices in accordance with state law. No testimony will be taken on this matter this evening. Thank you for your understanding.
Thank you, sir. And I'll add more when we finish up our introduction.
All right, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have any volunteers that would like to lead us tonight? Tim?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Label.
All right, let us begin with roll call. If each commissioner could just state their name, starting at my left.
Linda Fredericks, jet lagged, but here.
Fred Cuthbertson, present.
John Great Andrews, president. Present.
We having a coup, are we?
Present. Vice president.
Tim Eastridge here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the roll call.
We have our agenda up here, sir.
Oh, you do have it up. I have it. Okay, any public comments? Do we have anybody online that wishes to make a comment? Is that our Mark?
No,
Mark.
he's ours tonight.
Is there anybody online that would like to make a public comment?
Guess not.
Okay, we're gonna move forward then. Let's turn some time over to you for item number 5.
Thank you. So following Chair Cuthbertson's note about the subdivision hearing being postponed, this is still an opportunity for us to discuss the application to ensure that the hearing that we expect for next month is in good shape to be able to move forward smoothly. I have a quick note to comment here regarding the public hearing, what we can talk about tonight versus what we cannot. So during any meeting held prior to the noticed public hearing, the Planning Commission must not discuss or deliberate the merits of the application, including whether it meets approval criteria. It must not suggest or negotiate conditions of approval. It must not express opinions or intent about how they might move. And it must not ask questions that invite the applicant to argue the case that belongs in the hearing. Doing these could create procedural bias or give the appearance of prejudgment, violating ORS 197.763, the impartiality requirement. And it could potentially invalidate the city's decision if appealed. However, the commission can ask clarifying questions to understand the submittal. The applicant can describe the project factually, not persuasively. And the chair should remind everyone when necessary that deliberation and decisions must wait for the official public hearing. Are we all clear?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. I do see that the applicant is online this evening. Would you like to go ahead and unmute yourself? And if you choose to show your camera, and would you like to address the Planning Commission?
Yeah, hold on here.
And please hold one moment.
Can you guys hear me?
Here we go.
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, bear with me, guys. I'm on my phone. So,
Understood.
yeah, I'm trying to get the camera. I can't get the camera.
That's okay, Serge. If you can get it, great. And if you can't, you're more than welcome to speak to the commission. I wanted to just double check and ask if you were able to hear the statement that I read just a moment ago.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so we're all on the same page. What I want to do is give us an opportunity for you to describe in simple terms what your application is in regard to, and you're obviously aware, and so is the commission, that this is a phase 2, and so you're more than welcome to discuss phase 1 as well and how this might be similar or different to that. And the commission is more than welcome to ask questions as long as they stay within the parameters that we discussed just a little bit ago.
Okay.
And Serge, while you're getting some things worked out, I want to make sure that it's clear for the record. The way that the application was processed midway when I came in, it was originally processed such that the variance would be ministerial or administrative rather than one that is approved at the planning commission level. And that is simply wrong. And the reason is because our prior planner had assumed that this was a decision that would fall under Senate Bill 1537, which gives planning directors and city administrative staff the ability to make a 10% waiver on the minimum lot size. Given that this project is in the GRA zone, that 10% waiver that I have the discretion to give would only allow us to shave 800 square feet off of that 8,000 minimum. However, as you are aware, when phase one went in, and the intent of this one is to have lots that are around 5,600 or 5,400 square feet in total. As a result, this requires a full variance that does come before the planning commission as a component of the application. And so we have asked the applicant to revise that variance, submit it so that I can add it to the record. I will draft a short opinion that states that that was added to the record, and then we will renotice the meeting for a following date, which we expect to be 1 month from now.
Yeah, understood. Okay, so am I talking?
Yeah, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, yeah, okay, so, planning commission people, hello. My name is Serge Surtsev. I'm the developer, owner of the property. I purchased it back in 2018. We ran into some hurdles. We were gonna go in for a subdivision back then. We were gonna take 2 lots and through record of survey, we were gonna combine 2 lots to create 1 lot. Anyways, we ran into wetlands, and so Rick was the city manager at the time. He came up where he said, hey, let's avoid the wetlands. Let's do some partitions, and then you move forward on getting the wetlands permitted to fill. So we moved on phase 1, which we did partitions and partitioned them up and created 3 parcels per parcel. So we got a total of 8 buildable lots out of the first phase. And about a year and a half ago, I finally got the wetlands permitted. I've purchased the credits to fill the wetlands. I'm about $200,000 into wetland credits and the permitting process. So I'm here, guys, to move forward on the next phase, which is 26 more lots, which will we will be cutting in streets, putting in sewer systems, storm systems, water systems, and all that we originally wanted to do on the first phase, but it just didn't make financial sense. So so basically that's pretty much it. We're in for the rest of it, and we will be punching 8th, 9th, and 10th Street. We will be improving those streets and putting in utilities. So pretty much that's it. So if you guys have any questions.
Planning Commission? Do you have questions for the developer in regard to anything from phase 1? Anything that you would like to see the same in phase 2? Do you have any questions for the developer regarding anything about this project at a high level?
Well, I know there was a big push for rain gardens, and I never seen one. You know what those are?
Are you talking to me? I don't have my camera, so I can't see you guys.
That's fine. You remember talking about rain gardens? You'd catch the water and let it dissipate out into the yard?
Yeah, I think with our with the 40 with our wetland permit, we were required to get through DEQ a 401. I don't know if my engineer's on the on this or not. Mark Renz is the engineering firm. So with that, DEQ does require the water to be cleaned prior to discharge, which would create facilities that would be kind of like the rain garden type facilities. Hey, Mark, are you on the Zoom meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so Mark, there's Mark, multi-tech engineering. So you could probably explain this better than I can, right?
If I have permission.
Absolutely.
So yes, so where we have the system that we have designed, proposed on this is a combination of rain gardens and some larger stormwater quality facilities on the site. So all the water from the roofs and the new hard surface will be funneled through the rain garden / they're telling like rain gardens or planter boxes, and or through a larger water quality facility and detention facility. So all the runoff from the site will be treated beforehand and then will be detained so it leaves the site in its pre-developed rates. That
Does that
help?
answer your question?
The
Commissioner
houses
Akers?
that were already prior built, how are they gonna be added into this, or are they?
To a large extent they will be, so because the stormwater that gets collected from the facilities as we connect to the systems that are already in place, the majority of that water will get taken to our larger stormwater quality facility and be treated. So there's a few areas on the perimeter that are over on 8th and some on 9th that we can't get into that facility because they're too low. But the majority of the water that's already the structures that's already been homes have been built, that water will get collected and will also go through those treatment facilities. And we next month we'll be there in person for that meeting, and we will bring some drawings and we can better explain to everybody at that point in more detail how the system works. So you'll be able to see how we're collecting all that.
Excellent.
And this is a plan to add how many houses on this second phase?
26.
Channel 26.
26 new homes.
I have a clarifying question for TJ. You mentioned this is GRA, the zone,
Yes, it is.
and I was under the impression that did we not change it to GRB?
We did.
So I can speak to that. The commission made a motion at the local level to change it to GRB.
Mhm.
I am unaware if that ever made its way to city council. And then following that, it needs to go to the state, which it is where it's recorded. Similar to several other documents over the last few years, we did not submit that and it was not acknowledged by the state. So at present, it is still GRA.
I see.
And just to kind of add to that, the phase one was also GRA, but there was a variance for that phase one,
Correct.
and that variance has been recorded and is,
Yes.
okay. So the question, we wouldn't include phase one in the potential to move to GRB. We just leave that phase one alone with the variance.
That is correct. And that is the same approach that the applicant has been advised to make
Okay.
with phase two.
Okay.
And again, once we fully record the change to GRB, that will be moot anyway, but we do not have the legal authority to move forward in that way now.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? Yes.
Question, but how do you want me to address it? Want me to go to a microphone?
I'd recommend this be a comment from the public. So yeah, I would recommend up at the podium.
This is a comment from the public. Just wanting some clarification around infrastructure that we put in. Is it just streets or is it streets, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks?
So I can comment on this first off. So first off, the applicant is responsible during the public hearing to demonstrate all of the infrastructure that they are required to put in. Subdivisions are codified under Oregon revised statutes. And so as a component of the approval process at the local level, we must ensure that all of those requirements are met. And if they aren't, then the project could not get approved per state statute. And of course, the planning commission should and will ask questions pertaining to infrastructure during the meeting. If the applicant would like to discuss the infrastructure and what is intended at this moment for clarification, they're welcome to do so. Serge, if you'd like.
Yeah, hey, Mark, should I defer to you or do you want me to do my best on explaining it?
Well, I'll give it a whirl here, but I think, again, this is kind of like the drainage stuff that we talked about, probably at the next public hearing where we can bring and have and talk from drawings will be easier. But the intention here is to provide new public infrastructure, as Serge outlined, both underground sewer and water and storm, as well as surface improvements to the roads along all of the new homes and to catch up those things that didn't get improved when the phase one homes were built. And I believe that the drawings that we have submitted with the application outline those improvements as they're proposed. And we're going to double check and make sure that with this variance application, if there's anything that we didn't show that way, but that's the intention. So when it's all said and done, there'll be curbs and sidewalks in front of all of the new homes and those existing homes that Surge built with phase one, as well as paved streets and new water and sewer facilities as well.
Sir, from my own knowledge, Mark, being new here, could you help me understand what were those components for phase one that you're going to circle back to in phase two?
Well, so I was not the engineer with phase one, so I wasn't the designer, but when we looked at the existing infrastructure that was tied down out there, there's a few places in there where some of the frontage improvements weren't completed with all of the existing homes that Surge built. So we're going to make sure that those all get caught up as well. So there'll be a minimum, there should be a minimum of a 3/4 with street along the frontage of every one of the homes with a curb and sidewalk along each of those homes as well.
I would, if I had a crystal ball, expect the planning commission to lean into the infrastructure discussion. So I suspect you'll be prepared for that.
We'll have some really good information that we can bring and put up on the screen for everybody to see, and we'll be there to talk from. So it's the video meetings are very, very good for the most part, but they're a little bit harder when you can't be in the same room and you can't point to the drawings and stuff. But we have some pretty detailed information to go over with you.
That's excellent. Thank you. And for the note, I'm sure you're very familiar with this, but if you send me your presentation that you'd like to put up on the screen, even the day of or the day before, we can make sure that we facilitate that for you.
We can do that.
Okay, great.
I have a question. So with the public comment about road, curb, gutter, sidewalk, how is that going to marriage up with Ash Street? You're going to deal with 8th, 9th, and 10th, and you got a ditch that runs all the way down along Ash Street. How's that going to be implemented in?
I would defer to our next meeting when I have some drawings and I can show you how that all plays together. I think that's going to be the most beneficial for everybody to see, where I can have some maps and I can actually stand there and make sure that it's clear what we're proposing to do there. So
perhaps we can ask a yes, no question on that. Do you expect that to be a component of this project?
The proposal that we have put together was to make sure that we had filled all the gaps, that there was connectability between the proposed improvements that we're doing and the existing improvements that are there, so that we would connect out to 10th Street, and that we would connect, and that 9th and 8th Street would connect through, so that to try to make sure that everything connected, so there was adequate ways for people to maneuver, so there weren't gaps. So I'm not in my mind tonight. I should have reviewed the drawings ahead of time so I could answer some questions like this, but I believe that we're planning to make improvements to pick up all the drainage and stray drainage that's around there, and make sure that there's not ditches in the way.
Does that clarify your question, Commissioner Eastridge?
I just wanted to plant the seed in there.
Okay, good.
So planted, so planted.
So, nice.
Another question is there any plans for a park other than the rain garden?
No, we don't have a pocket park or anything like that proposed in the layout at this point in time. We are using one larger area for a water quality facility, but it wouldn't necessarily function as a park.
And how are you going to deal with fire department turnarounds?
We will make, for the most part, with the exception of one of the streets, they are all set up so that they connect through, or that we've made provisions for a secondary emergency turnaround for fire. So we shouldn't have any dead ends that are longer than 150 feet that would require fire to have to back up. So we'll have a provision for them to turn around.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So I
Look
got,
forward to the meeting next month. Thank you.
One more question.
yeah, and this is, and what for the city administrator, and you can tell me not to ask it, I'll withdraw if needed. But do we as a city have appropriate sewer and water lines to the site for this project?
My understanding is that during the conversation with DRC Schultz, that he indicated that there is sufficient infrastructure. What I do not have, and what I suspect the applicant would like as well, is something in writing that states that the infrastructure is there. I will provide that before the next public hearing. That was one of the other pieces that I wanted to be certain of. So many people have had this application in front of them, and a lot of people are checking boxes. I just want to be certain.
Good. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time
Thank
tonight,
you.
gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Look forward to
Yeah.
seeing you next month.
See you next month.
Yep. See you guys. Bye.
All right.
I have a question again. Our sewer pipes, water pipes, and drainage system over here that goes down that alleyway, just behind Kelly, is that where the water sewer and all that is, in that ditch line?
I don't know. I will,
Is it adequate piping for all this new addition?
that's what I'm going to get in writing. That's what I need to ensure that we have, and that we have it on record as a statement from Chuck, who is supporting Mark as the lead at this time. So I cannot speak to that, and nobody here at the moment has the expertise to do so. So I'll wait till we're on the record.
Good.
Yeah, that's a critical component.
Absolutely. And it's also a requirement of approval that we need to ensure that those things are in place. We'll make sure that we check all of those boxes appropriately at the right time.
Well, I know the Dollar General, when they put all this infrastructure in, they upgraded out to that parking lot. But past that on up the hill, that's a different project.
Got it.
So
My hope is that Rick and Steve and all of the people who have looked at this project over the last several years, knowing that the intent was to do it in one fell swoop before the wetlands became a concern, right? That they would have identified the infrastructure capacity as appropriate at the time. I assume nothing. And so I'm going to make sure of that before we move forward.
and then again, if any clay tile is involved from this parking lot on up the hill, that needs to be replaced.
This is a good opportunity because what we'll be doing is speaking with the city council at the next city council meeting. The DRC will be there and I will ask him to speak to that.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
All right. Let's move on to the bus.
Thank you. I am going to pull up a map for really the benefit of myself. I think all of you know your city really, really well. Our city. I'm just beginning to see this as my.
What is the question? I mean,
Thank
they
you.
wanna-
Yes. So there is a new bus line that will be traveling, they call it the 99 Vine, and it will be going from Eugene all the way up to Corvallis. The planning commission is being asked this evening to discuss the appropriate location for that bus stop. We can choose whichever location that we think is appropriate. I also think it's great that we have the mayor here this evening as well, so that we can have a discussion from his perspective, if there's anything that we would like to know.
Is it a public bus route?
It is a public bus tour. I'll also mention that it's been going on for several months. This did not come before you. It's the 11th hour and they're going to need our response by next week. They just got in front of me and said, hey, we've been kind of waiting on your response for a really, really long time and haven't gotten one yet. So my intent is to bring this before you tonight so that we can discuss where you think the most appropriate location for a public bus stop would be. I can tell you in Adair Village, they're putting it at the city hall. There are a couple of other options as well, but what we're looking for from you is your opinion about where it should go.
Is it going to be on 99 or?
There will be a northbound and a southbound.
No, I mean, does the bus stop need to be on 99?
No, I don't believe it needs to be on 99. And in fact, that makes it rather challenging because there's no place for it to pull off. It really couldn't be on 99 unless they created a specific cutout for it. That was not part of the infrastructure project. So ideally not on 99. Previously, I know that we,
On it. Yeah.
go ahead, Commissioner Nielsen.
Just not directly on it. That is, I mean, there's, like you can't just pull over in front of the bank or something.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, you can't like take up the shoulder.
Mhm.
Right? That's not possible. I know we previously had it across from City Hall, I think, because it looks like there's still a post in the ground. No, I'm seeing Commissioner Eastridge.
They put in a bus
Shelter there. Yeah.
shelter there, but we don't need all that traffic going up Commercial Street.
Okay.
No,
Is it helpful to pull up a map?
I got an idea.
I have ideas too. I want to see what Tim's idea is.
I have an idea of this, we have a park that goes from Ash Street all the way to Cemetery Lane. And it's about yay wide and there's nothing in it but trees. And there's several places where you can pull or put designated roads in. So you can pull off one area and exit out Ash Street. And you could actually bring in a modular on a paved parking area right there, right north of the library. And there'd be adequate turnaround, layover, whatever, right in that area,
North of the library.
north of the library. Well, bus line.
Tim Eastridge, he'll start collecting cans tomorrow.
Why wouldn't we just use the library?
That was my suggestion. The
My suggestion was the library too.
Boom.
Or,
Well,
food pantry.
well, when you say the library, are you saying they're gonna do a loop around inside of the parking lot? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yeah, they could do that.
Yeah, and an
I don't know that they could do a loop.
They
in the
can't,
park.
my van barely makes a loop in there.
Depends on how big the bus is. The trolley was able to do it.
I'm sure this can be a full-size bus.
It'll be a full-size bus. It doesn't, what they'll likely do is they'll just take the regular streets back around, right?
There is to the point about the library there, the library property line, kind of comes out and there's a place where they, just to the side of where they put all the chips and stuff, just adjacent to where all the semis park already in the Basaraba property there. So,
I don't know if that's an official.
but there is, I mean, you'd have to talk to the new owners of the library property to be able to.
We don't have the time really for that at the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's, I mean, it could be a good location. I'd recommend it being near a public space.
I have another idea I just wanted to propose is what about just right out here outside this building? So in theory, the Legion Hall here, you could put it right out here, just off the corner of the building, and then they could just do a loop right turn over here at the Long Timber and then just park this way and then go right back down Main and then get back on 99.
So I've heard next to library, I've heard outside MCC.
So I know that we had a discussion with the previous city administrator and Mark Murray with Janice Cook over at Food Pantry
Mhm.
about giving one of those bus shelters to them, because they were talking about that, the Benton area transit bus coming down here at some point, and they wanted a shelter. And she was all for having the shelter over the food pantry.
Mhm.
So I'm just throwing that out there because we had that previous conversation.
It's a good idea.
So, and I
It,
think
and,
there's
and,
enough room to pull off there too.
mhm, yeah, I know that she would be interested in that.
Yeah.
And you could confirm that as in like tomorrow, right? We could
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Could we submit both and have them take a look and what would be best for them?
I think I could offer that out there.
Just say that there are two areas that we're looking at, and they could take a look to see if either one of them is preferable.
Absolutely. I might recommend that you give, okay, here's two. We lean this way, but we defer to you if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't think we would lean either way. I think we.
They may come
Let
back to you
them
and say, I
decide.
don't
Are
know.
we gonna create a shelter and with a bench and all that kind of stuff?
I don't know if there's going to be a shelter. It would be wonderful if there was, and I'm sure that there's an opportunity to collaborate with them about getting one in the location that it's going to go.
We could recycle one of the two that we have.
Or we could recycle one of the, yeah, exactly right. One of the ones that we have currently. What we're giving them now, they have a deadline for a place on the map. Yeah.
I have another quick question. So right here in the intersection, between Monroe Arts Association and the Broadley.
Yep.
There's that tiny little piece of vacant lot right there. Is that actually Niestrom's?
I think that's these rooms, yeah.
Okay, it kind of looks like almost like a right of way for a part of
Yeah.
like a portion of a street kind of going through there.
Oh, TJ can confirm that. I think it's these rooms.
It is the Niestrums, and I suspect that's going to be a key piece of property when they do look at developing.
So did they provide any requirements, preferred requirements for locations? Like
I
I'm
wish they
assuming-
gave me some parameters.
They didn't.
They just said, tell me where you want it.
So I assume they are public parking, space for public parking and easy on and off in 99.
Don't think we're looking for a park and ride. We are really just looking for a spot where people can convene and get on the bus, and that is it.
Yeah, but I would assume people get on the bus, maybe driving. So
Potentially.
there has to be some place to potentially park if they're
Would be
driving
nice.
in from somewhere and. and
That's one of the
stop.
that's one thing that would recommend Heritage Hall for that.
Yeah.
That solution because it's right beside
This is completely packed
Yeah.
every day with all of the bus drivers.
No, Heritage Hall is where we had lunch over there.
Okay.
Yep, that's Janice's
The
place.
church, the old church.
The former.
So with that,
Parking there.
with that in mind, it really is the library or Heritage Hall are the only options in town that I see that meet those kind of criteria. If those are criteria we choose to.
And she's good
Focus
with
on.
that.
I think she would be really happy with that solution, frankly.
Torin, could I ask you to reach out to her as soon as possible?
Yes, sir.
If you're available,
Yep,
if you
yep.
could reach out to her as soon as possible.
Sure.
If we can get an answer before the end of business tomorrow, I committed to giving an answer to them,
Okay.
by that time. But what we do know is that we absolutely could choose, next to, so which one was out in your view? Was it the MCC or the library? That was,
What?
so you said really there's only two that'll work, the food pantry and what other one?
The library.
The library.
I'm not positive the library is really viable too.
I don't think it's.
Because
viable.
it's not city property, so you're asking, you'd be asking those folks that just took over the thing to say, can we now go ahead and take up some of your space? And I'm not positive that's a real viable alternative.
Isn't the gravel parking lot right there at entrance city property between the old Wilbur Ellis and,
Yeah, you're right. There is
Yeah.
the street right away,
right?
yeah, between the library and.
It's like 75 feet wide or something like that.
That is city property.
Right.
It's Pine, extension of Pine Street.
Is that a street? Is it a full street?
Street, this side of the tracks.
Yeah, it's the right of way.
Got it. Is it a full street though, like with a?
I don't think,
Gravel.
I mean,
The
well,
width wise, 75 or 125 feet.
I'm not sure.
maybe you can zoom in on it on your,
I would love to. Yeah, it would help me out here.
Who owns Heritage
so
Hall?
head for the library. What's that?
Board.
Who owns Heritage Hall?
The South Benton pantry. Yeah, the
So we're
South
up
Benton, and they,
here.
and the larger organization, the South
Where's the
Benton Resource
library?
What size
Center.
bus is this?
Pardon me?
That's what I'm
size
looking for
bus?
too.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Keep,
There's a cemetery.
okay, go, you're too far north, go south. Find the high school and go across the street from it. High school's to the
Okay,
right.
There's the library, right?
Nope, go,
To the right.
gotta go to the right. There you
See my
go.
house?
There you go.
Yeah.
My senior establishment.
Thank you, sir. So
So-
that stretch of land right there.
Mhm.
So that's not part of the library property.
That's city.
That's our
city
property.
City property.
The challenge will be for the northbound
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
and also the southbound potentially, because it's not an approach or an apron that's there. They may not even accept it.
I think it's a raised median there too, isn't it, for high school crossing?
I don't know. You
Well,
have to
not,
zoom in on
not
it.
straight
Not right
out,
there.
but yeah, you're right. To the north it is.
I mean, that's where all the semis pull in all the time and just hang out.
Yeah. So we're talking about outside the MCC, next to the library potentially, but that may, I don't know, it's up to you if you think that's a good location. And then also the food pantry.
Well, if you're talking a full-size bus, the food pantry is probably going to be your only challenge or place to do this.
Well, you can, I mean, over here is not hard.
I would
Like
agree
you're-
with that. One thing that I think about over here is that we control this building and
Yeah,
there's plenty of roads for them to come in and get back out regardless if it's north or south.
there's a big bus lot right across the street.
But you were talking parking.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking that that doesn't give you a lot of parking except for in front of this building for people who might park and ride.
Like Fred said, it's full. Monday
full
through
every day.
Friday.
Monday through Friday.
They could always park at the post office. I think that'll be fine.
I think so too.
Also, every. Make a little cash. A little kickback from the token.
So my perspective is that the library might be challenging because there's a lot of traffic in that area. And we don't have a publicly owned space or a partner that we can work with easily. It sounds to me like outside the MCC or the food pantry are going to be ideal. And really, we're down to one option depending on what the food pantry has to say. So Torrin, do you want to lean that direction towards the food pantry?
I personally think that we're looking at an 85 to 90% certainty that
Let's
she's
just
gonna be
verify.
fine. I'm
Trust
just,
but verify.
yes, I'm just giving you a likelihood based
That
upon.
they'll be okay with that?
Yes, yes.
So let's assume that they have said yes. What is our preferred location between the two?
Let's help the food pantry. If they want it, let's help the food pantry.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And Torrin, we can't let it.
So
can-
we offer it for the food
we can
pantry
raise
location.
money to help the
Yeah.
Pantry, we've done it before, so we have.
Yeah. She's,
For whatever reason
She
it
did
doesn't
that.
work, then we default to the MCC.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay.
Understood? That sounds like a plan. Thank you, guys.
Right.
That was painless, wasn't it?
Before they wanted to displace homeless from Corvallis and bring them down here. That was one of the plans.
Who's they?
We were supposed to be sharing locations to house homeless. So-
Yes.
They were-
Counties.
And so one of the plans was to create a bus route so that they could share homeless between the different cities.
That is a whole other discussion and the county is still working on those efforts.
Just be prepared.
Understood. Thank you.
All right. 11:35, John,
John,
Captain John,
Oh, boy.
President John Gradonis.
President, that's right.
He would make a good
Post
captain.
two.
Present. Okay, quick. I thought there's a couple issues that have come up that we can talk about with the city administrator later, but just to create a context, really haven't had an update on 11:35 for a while. So quick, I'll go through that. Kind of set the context of two questions that we're wrestling with right now. But the last time there was any kind of public or any kind of update on this, I think was in last September, in between the end of the feasibility study and before the city voted on whether to continue on with the design phase. At that point, the advisory committee presented two documents, kind of an overview of all the work that the advisory committee had done and a PowerPoint that Torrin has had big input on just kind of what the feasibility study looked like, what the questions are asked, what work was done in that area. So that happened last September of 24. The city voted to move into the design phase at that point. It wasn't until November of 2024 that all the documents associated with moving into the design phase were signed. That included the agreement with the Army Corps, all the certificates the city had to send to the Army Corps, and the agreement with the Longtown Watershed Council. Once all that was done in November, then the design work moved forward. Then, of course, in January of 2025, we had a funding freeze that went into effect, which stopped everything. In February of 2025, that funding freeze was lifted for this project, so the Army Corps could re-engage. In February of 2025, Longtown Watershed Council moved funds for the cost share from their accounts to the Army Corps. That amounted to about $621,000. They also have a pending grant for some additional money based on the final estimate of the project. But that money has been moved to the Army Corps for cost share on behalf of the city. They all, Longtown Watershed Council also provided the first payment for O&M on the potential new water intake of $15,000. So that transfer happened at the signing of the design phase. So the additional increments will happen at I think another one at construction once the bids are released, and then on completion. And that's for O&M on the water intake. They also have secured about $710,000 for design and construction of a new water intake to take into account the change in water level. So that happened in February. Then in June, this is why this project is taking so long. I mean, it's been stop and go. I think all of you know.
Mother, may I take 2 steps?
Right, exactly. But then in June, the Army Corps lost a number of its more senior employees. They left the Army Corps at that point, including our project manager, Elliot Porter, who some of you remember.
Mhm.
They were determined to keep the project going. And they've moved the project management from where Elliot was in the Washington area. It's all located now in the Portland Army Corps area. So the engineers are there. There's a project manager, part-time assigned. So most of the crew that's working on this project, as far as design and engineering and contracting, are now in Portland. And they've been catching up to speed over summer. There's been multiple visits here. And so that the design phase has been continuing for most of the summer into the fall. We are now in a government shutdown again, which has slowed things a little bit, but the crew is still working on the project. So they are moving forward. So that kind of explains the timeframe, some of the delays that have been happening. But throughout this whole process, the design phase continues forward. And that work has included additional design and engineering on the drop structure removal, what that will take, ways of how they envisioning that happen, working with a consultant who's been involved with drop structure removals before to gain a better idea how this project would look so they can write appropriate specs for the project. They have taken on designing the lower culvert, which is below the dam right now, which connects those sloughs to the, the southern or the northern sloughs. That has to be designed to accommodate fish passage both ways. That work is moving forward. They took on work to redesign the upstream culvert, which is north or south of the bridge. I'm only assuming rivers flow the other direction. After looking at that for a while, there's been apparently no water flowing through that upstream culvert, maybe since the 1940s when it was put in. And so the issue of trying to update that to make it work now didn't seem worthwhile or of any benefit. So that has been postponed. That work on that has been postponed. They're working with ODOT on the scour of the pier, the bridges, the piers that hold up 99. At this point, ODOT does not see any ramifications or problems associated with the lowering of the water for the bridge, which is great. They will sign off on that. That's important because that releases any O&M on the bridge, any city responsibility for the O&M on the bridge. So that process is almost ready and signed. And they also are looking at the final cleanup and replanting vegetation and the questions of silt in the river and trying to get a final handle on what that will look like. So that's the work they're doing right now. And that work continues.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I was walking around over there and I was surprised to see a lot of like brush removal and stuff just downstream of the, is that the city?
I could speak to that. We're required to do that annually to clean out near where our wastewater pours into the river.
Okay.
And so that'll continue to happen every single year.
It was really nice, actually. I was really surprised. So,
Let Mark know.
nice work, yeah.
He'll appreciate the kudos.
Mhm.
They also moved the gauge, it looks like the gauge, some other, moved the gauge from up above the bridge down to that site right near where they cleared that area out. So you probably see a little gauge and a box where they're monitoring water level now down there. So there are two questions then. So the upstream culvert is at this point not part of the project, and so that has not been factored into the cost. They will be monitoring that for the 5-year period that they're required to monitor the whole project after construction, and could come back to revisit that. But right now, it just didn't seem relevant to the project. There's also, the feasibility study said that the mill race and the fish ladder would remain during the initial engineering. There's some questions about how to make that work. If they could stabilize those two structures enough to leave them in place. And
Because there wouldn't be any water through them, basically, right? Is that the idea? The water level would be low to the point where it wouldn't, the mill race and fish ladder wouldn't be really relevant.
well, the fish ladder is not relevant, has never been relevant. And the mill race has some water going through at high water. The question though is, once the dam is removed, what holds those two pieces on the
Structurally holding them up,
structurally
yeah.
holding it? So they provide some options. I think we'll revisit those. That's part of the discussion. You want to, it impacts the city, and so we want to make sure the city is aware of some of these discussions. And then with TJ here, looking at the water intake design and engineering, he was able to clarify a different process needed to make sure we do that correctly and that fully integrates with all the other work that the city's doing. So that RFP process has been taken over by the city to make sure it stays within the context of state law. And TJ can talk about where we are with that. With the two questions of the mill race and the fish ladder, and how to, if the goal is to preserve those, then the steps need to take. So there are 3 options they gave us. And TJ's put a spreadsheet together of those to help discuss, but just initially, there is, remove everything, the dam and the mill race and the fish ladder, so that that's not a structural issue you can be concerned about for either the Army Corps or for the city or for the landowner. But leaving all the concrete that's above the mill race, that's outside the scope of the project anyway. The second option is to keep about 8 feet of the dam in place and wrap the entire structure in riprap in order to deflect water away from that structure in order to preserve those two structures. We're still trying to get a visual of what that would look like and how much of those structures could you see if they're wrapped in riprap. But that would stabilize those enough that we wouldn't have to worry 40, 50 years from now of those falling into the river. There are questions for the city and for the landowner about that option, which we're currently evaluating and getting input on. And the third option is spending money to do a complete engineering analysis of those two structures to see what would happen to them if the drop structures removed. That happens to be a fairly pricey engineering and estimate, which would be added to the cost of the project, which would increase the cost share for the project and but would give us clear answers, which may include the need to remove them or it may give us the evidence we need to decide option 1 or option 2. So it adds certainty, but we may still be left with 1 or 2 when we're done with that kind of study.
Can I ask a question? What is the purpose of leaving the mill race and the fish ladder?
At this point, the property owner has expressed interest in retaining it. And these options are.
Who's the property owner?
Todd and Amy.
He wants to keep.
Sentimental value, I think,
Has some
or historical value for the city or something like
And
that.
we've talked,
Maybe he can pay for the engineering.
well, so we just have these
Honestly,
options.
I mean,
Yeah,
if
I mean,
if he wants to pay for that engineering, then he can keep it.
yeah, and one of the options on the table, have always been on the table, is to make an historical marker there with plaques that we have.
Commemorate it.
Yeah, we have all the great historical pictures and images down at the museum here, to use those to make an historical marker, really bringing back the history of the steamship, the mill, what this town looked like then. I think would also be a great way of
Mark it.
reminding us of what happened there. But yes, those 3 options have been put forward because first of all, it wasn't included in the feasibility study. And so the property owner assumed they would remain. And those are the discussions we're having right now. It's important to the property owner, but also its impact for the city. And I think those are the issues that TJ wants us to consider. Because the O&M, if they leave that in place, the city is responsible for the O&M on that riprap.
Yeah. I had a question. So I know that there's a kind of a nebulous question mark around the idea of a pedestrian bridge that could carry utilities across the river. And then the thought process of incorporating that as a request back to the Army Corps to do some perhaps potential, at least some groundwork or some kinds of earthwork or whatever on the sides while they're doing their project to either at least not to diminish the situation that we already have, if potentially to advance it. So I guess what I was wondering too, just to make things even more complicated, is that if there is a big question mark around how to handle this area where the fish ladder is, and it needs to be somehow remediated anyway, that maybe that could also be incorporated into our eventual need to create some sort of civic pedestrian bridge. So I didn't know, you know what I mean? So if there's some way to have those things overlap so that we're doing work to buttress that area, and it could also be the thing that's necessary to help us with our other needs.
Yeah, and I just let TJ respond, but just quick, right now, things are kind of on hold for the end design phase to
Mhm.
see which way we want to go. And we wouldn't know for sure if we have funding or way to move ahead with the bridge until maybe a year or two or more when the capital campaign. So it's a timing issue. It'd be nice if those things were melded and we could act simultaneously, but right now, the time difference, the time variances makes it a little bit problematic. But the point you raised, I think is good, is the three things I think for the city I'm most concerned on is the water intake and design and RFP process that has to match up with this project. The attributes, which I think the bridge is one that we've talked about, several different attributes that could really benefit the city as far as economic development and quality of life. So those are on the table and being discussed. And then really constantly monitoring the impact of O&M as a result of this project. Those really have to be, the city has to be very careful to avoid any long-term O&M related to the project. So
Seems like there's an opportunity for a real strong and intentional kind of design to be developed and potentially executed here that could solve a lot of problems all at once if, as opposed to there being some kind of unfortunate confusion that creates a lot of cost perhaps. So
I think your point about if we know the attributes that the city wants to pursue, and it may take several years for those to come about, it's more like do no harm while this work goes forward.
Yeah.
It may be difficult. It's not only the potential work that could happen for these attributes, but it's also while the Army Corps is on the ground, the permitting process would be so much easier to happen. But right now, the 1135 project is probably moving forward faster than, even though it doesn't feel like it's moving very fast, it's probably moving faster than some of the investments the city has to make.
but maybe not faster than a design effort to at least blueprint what the eventual plan is so that at least the Army Corps is working in concert with that future kind of design, which is probably what's.
Are there
So-
any liability issues for the city by having that?
Liabilities as far as retaining anything.
Yeah, like if
Yeah.
if the fish ladder is capped or if the,
So it's my understanding, TJ, good. Once the Army Corps is done with the project, anything left becomes the responsibility of the city to manage. And
that's,
take
well, and
care
that's
of. And
a huge consideration.
But the
And-
stuff that we're talking about leaving would be on Todd's property.
So I can comment on that.
it would be, yeah, it's extending out a little bit, but
So the operations and maintenance associated with leaving the fish ladder and that structure in place could come into play if the water has to go around it. And as a result, could potentially erode the banks of the river faster than it would if it just went straight through the center. This is something that the hydrology expert is looking at, but that potential does exist.
Right.
A couple of other things to keep in mind. With option number one, removing the drop structure along with all of the historic elements as well, there's a little point to add to that. There's a state historic preservation office, and they're called SHPO colloquially, and they are the ones who have to render a determination to the Army Corps of Engineers regarding whether it's actually a significantly historic structure. If it is not a significant historic structure, then the property owner and the city could work together to do whatever we wish to it.
I see.
If it is a significant historic structure, then we either have to keep it in place, or if we remove it, we have to mitigate that through a number of different signage and other types of commemorations. If that comes to pass, then the Corps' 75% responsibility of those costs would come into play, and we'd only have to cover 25% of those costs. A couple of other things to think about is this project was initially slated to begin construction in the summer of 2026, and so months from now. It became clear when I came on board based on what John had just said a few moments ago, the Army Corps of Engineers was going to just have the Long Tom Watershed Council, and we were as well, going to have the Long Tom Watershed Council be the entity in charge of handling the intake for the water treatment plant. It's our infrastructure, we own it, and under federal and state law, we are required to be the ones who send out that RFP, hire the engineer, and do all of the work ourselves. So the Long Tom Watershed Council will be transferring that money to us. As a result of that and a few other elements as well, this project will be moving forward in the summer of 2027. This buys us time we previously did not have, but we do now, to look at grant opportunities and funding for the pedestrian bridge. We absolutely can begin to look at preliminary engineering and identify where that bridge could and should go, and work with the Army Corps to ensure that they leave kind of a keyhole space available for that to happen, or at least don't inhibit that from happening, as you said, Torrin. We also would be able to work with the property owner to identify where that bridge would connect to, because of course it would be on their property on this side of the river.
If it goes through in that place, yeah.
Right, if it goes through in that location, it would be an ideal location, especially given some of their prospective future development ideas. But this is all for us to look at over the coming year. Again, we have now the time to do that where we didn't previously. Some more information that I want to share with you is that the Nystroms have something to say about how they would like that fish ladder and the historical structures to remain in place, but also the city needs to render a decision as well. This is your opportunity to think this over the next couple of months and provide a recommendation to City Council to consider, because they are the ultimate decision-making body. To just review the three options. Option one is complete removal of absolutely everything altogether. Where they take out the drop structure, the fish ladder, the mill race, regardless of slopes, it just all comes out. This is the most environmentally beneficial option. It makes it the prettiest, most natural looking landscape if you're thinking about it from just its natural view.
But not supported by Nystroms.
We offered these options to them and they are considering those options. At present, we believe that they're leaning towards option two.
Okay.
But they, of course, haven't made that decision yet, and they were open to taking this home and thinking it over.
Okay.
Option two, which we currently believe to be the Nystrom's primary option, but they haven't put that in writing or officialized that yet, would be an engineering solution where we remove most of the structure. We keep, as John said, 8 to 10 feet of the mill race and the fish ladder and add anchors and riprap around it. In that situation, there's a level of risk associated with that, because what we can't see is what the bedrock looks like below. And so they would ideally need to drill down and put anchors into that bedrock. What are they putting it into? They actually won't know when they're done. They will have an educated guess about what they're doing. That opens up the potential for future remedies, which they would be responsible for fixing if anything were to go awry and it had a material defect as a result. But we would not have that level of certainty at this time. So option number three, which is by far the most expensive option, is the one that would require or include a very detailed engineering field investigation that would tell us with crystal clarity what that bedrock looks like and what can and cannot be done. It adds 2 orders of magnitude to the cost of this project, so it's rather significant, but certainty is of the highest order here. We couldn't get more certain. There are other elements that we're looking at. So of course, design complexity, from the first to the second to the third option, it increases in design complexity, and as a result, the funding associated with that. Again, option one has the greatest environmental benefit. Construction effort, option one would be quick, and option three, of course, would be not quick. And then the estimated total, option one, we're talking in the order of maybe $100,000 potentially. Option number two, $350,000 to $500,000 total. And then option number three, it could go as high as $1.5 million or go up higher from there. What we need to be aware of is that the Corps is responsible for 75% of the project, and the project as a total, regardless of who shares in it, can't go over $10 million. If it does, 100% of the cost is borne by us. So if the project did theoretically go up to the maximum, a jurisdiction would be responsible for 2.5 million and the Corps responsible for 7.5 million. Thankfully, we are not that big of a structure. This is not Willamette Falls, right? This is Monroe. And so our costs are going to be significantly less unless one of the stakeholders really wants to push forward with option number 3, which would be a detailed engineered approach. SHPO will have something to say about this. We're still waiting on the determination about whether or not it's of historic significance. Next, of course, we're waiting on the preferred option from the Nystroms. Following that, we will return to this body to discuss what we have learned and what our next steps could potentially be.
When might we hear from the Nystroms?
I expect to have information back from them within the next month or two. John, is that a fair assessment?
Sure. We'd like to provide them some sketches, some kind of visuals of what things would look like or could look like. That should help with the decision-making process. I think they need to hear back from the city's what the city feels about the options and the impact of being responsible to the city as well. But I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll bring this also to the city council for their work session. So if there's anything that you'd like to include in terms of concerns, thoughts that you feel really strongly about, or questions. And thoughts could be just ideas or suggestions that you like.
So when they put this original dam in, they must have known the bedrock then.
No,
How could they not?
because this was built, 50, 60 years ago, and we didn't have the technology that could tell us exactly what was there, especially if it's underneath the river. Now we do, but we use satellites to do that. But unfortunately, it has a structure on top of it now, so you can't see that.
So what exactly is the point of taking this dam out? Is it to save the fish or is it the
It's not the
quality
fish.
water?
Yeah, it's not about the dam. We were
The
just
quality of
talking
the
about
water-
Fish ladder.
Right, so the quality of the water could potentially improve if we see the improvements to the ecosystem, which is
Well,
what
I
we
hear the word could,
Right.
might, would.
and they will monitor. So we'll know the current baseline versus reality as time continues. They're able to predict how it will go based on how other 1135 projects have progressed in the past and been monitored. So this does allow for fish to come to where they hadn't before. So these are threatened and endangered species of salmon.
Where are they gonna go?
Upstream.
Where?
So one thing we
Up
can
into
do,
the
and I think is a really good
tributaries, or They go
idea.
to the next drop structure and then that one gets knocked down and then they go to
A
the
lot of
next
this
one.
stuff is too hot for them to even live up there.
So I think,
Where are the fish gonna go and how is it a benefit to the fish?
okay, so I think there's a couple, yeah, I mean,
And what we'll do,
Or this since it started.
it's okay, what we're gonna have is we're gonna have the Longtime Watershed Council here to present.
Oh, I've yacked at them before about it.
And this is an opportunity for us to get questions on the record so that we can ask them and ensure that everybody is just really clear on what's happening.
What scares me to death is after you hit $10 million, the city's on the hook.
But we'll
Well,
never.
how much hook?
No,
Well,
You don't know. You don't know anything of what's gonna happen in the future.
What I do know is that we won't commit to breaking ground until we know that we're fully funded. And we certainly can't be fully funded above anything above what the Long Tom has raised, which is roughly under $1 million.
So we spent a lot of time talking about these things over the last year or two, but I think, and we can answer some of those questions now, but the question, I think any project this size with as many stakeholders has 3 or 4 different people looking for 3 or 4 or 5 different values in a project like this. So you can say the Longtime Watershed Council is looking for certain things that they're looking for. The 1135 grant actually is required to demonstrate river restoration in order to get the funding. So that's their responsibility, to demonstrate and show that. That matches up with the Longtime Watershed Council's goals and many upstream folks. For the city, it's always been economic development, quality of life, improved water, potential for improved water, economic development which grows directly out of the Riverside District Master Plan on how can a city capitalize on better access and a more attractive river. So that's always been the goal for the city in that. So you can have multiple goals competing for a single project. And I think it's important for us to really focus on what the city's goals are.
And John, this is what we will have is the opportunity for a long time to come here.
Yeah.
What I want to hear, and I appreciate that. I've recorded that concern, and that is a question that we will ask the long Tom to respond to.
I know the river, what we're talking about, the river's gonna go from this wide down to this wide, and it's supposed to be beautiful somehow.
Yeah.
I don't think it's narrowing significantly.
It,
I don't
it's,
see how it can.
it's just gonna look like it's just gonna look like, just look downstream of the Long Tom right now. It's just gonna
Ideally,
look like
what
the regular
downstream
river.
looks like now, but again, we want to confirm that. What I'm hearing is you have a concern about that, and you would like some confirmation.
Well, when you hear should, would, might, could, those are all key letters
Understood,
that
You know,
make me question everything.
understood.
and maybe I'm wrong, but when the city council voted to approve the design phase, it's too late. The project's moving forward no matter what.
Oh,
It's just what the outcome is gonna look like.
No, that's not true.
That is not true. We still have,
Phase two, once we sign off on, vote on phase two.
The design phases, they're gonna present the design to us.
we still have to
And
choose
so
a design. We still has to be financially viable.
Okay,
This is all, this is a very slow moving juggernaut.
Well, the original presentation was,
original presentation was, once we voted, the city council voted on the design phase. It was what I remember.
So
Then the trains left the station and nothing you could do about it.
and I,
Design phase.
so
well,
I
it's
explained that
changed.
very carefully at the time. So the funding was moved through the design phase. I said at the end of the design phase, the city has to make sure they have all the money and there's no cost to them.
That's right.
And we get to review the design phase and make sure we sign on to it and modify it again. So that was, and I even looked at notes earlier, that was very clear that you go moving the design phase. At the end of the design phase, there's yet another contract for the city to sign. The
That's
city
right.
has to, and we have in all agreements with Longtown Water Street else that if the funding's not there or if other things happen, the city can back out. Now, each step, it gets more and more difficult for our partners because of the investments made. I grant, that's true. But there is another opportunity at the end of the design phase for the city to look at everything, make sure everything's in place, and then.
So I just want to just clarify too, this conversation that we're having is really about just one small detail of that feeds into the design phase.
That is correct.
And
We are
that's it.
looking at 3 options right now.
For
And what I'm
just-
trying to gauge from you is what kind of questions should we be asking Long Tom to provide answers to in a public meeting?
Hmm.
What kind of concerns do you have right now that would be beneficial for the public or Long Tom to hear? And what ideas do you have for any one of these options that you might like on the record now? There will be plenty of opportunity still remaining for this body to approve applications, which must come through this body. We're including for wetland delineations that have to happen still. There's a lot that needs to come through this body.
Okay.
Tangentially, and this might have no bearing at all, but I remember that one of the things for us to draw water from the river was that we had to explore other sources of water. Do any of these options have any bearing on?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think
Okay.
I don't think it has any
Like if you
impact
take
on,
the fish
on
ladder
the
out, does it
intake.
have,
No, no.
or you put some blockage in, does that create problems in the water and then you?
Actually, so, and I can speak to that. And this is why we have some funding available to address those issues if they occur. So 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, the water level is going to drop. And when the water level drops, the intake will be above the water. So we need to extend that intake further down.
No, the intake is going to be in the riverbed. So the whole concept of funding this $700,000 fund for a brand new intake is to actually completely remove the old intake and
Mhm.
replace it with a superior system.
That is correct.
And that superior system is not going to be sucking from the top, but is likely going to be
On the bottom.
from the bottom. So it's also going to be taking advantage of the filtration that's natural in the
And-
bottom. of
Yeah,
the
and
river.
that's for, to be clear,
Yeah.
we think that's the case, but when we put out our RFP, the engineer
Mhm.
will basically
We'll
dic-
clarify that.
we'll clarify and
Yeah.
dictate exactly in the RFP what kind of system we need to have.
I didn't mean to forestall your conversation.
No, that's okay,
Yeah,
Torrin.
yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
so much for bringing that up.
Yeah.
If it gets dropped, it'll go drop further. If it is going to come in another direction, that gives us the opportunity to build it right. Because currently, to your point, we know that we don't have the right type of water treatment plant. We don't know what the intake is going to look like, but what we do know is that the intake needs to be adjusted. And if you were to just get rid of the drop structure right now, it would be sucking air, right? Because it would be down low. That's one component. Now, also, when we adjust that river and we drop the drop structure, it's possible for some sedimentation over time before it all settles down. And that could clog a little bit of that intake, which means that we're going to have some money, about $50,000 available from the Long Tom Watershed Council to help mitigate those costs. It is incumbent upon me to make sure that I get from the engineer a solid and accurate assessment of how much operations and maintenance is likely to cost us over a certain period of time to make sure that that fully funds those costs. If it's higher, then we'll go back to Long Tom and let them know that we'd like to work together to raise some more funding. And if we believe that it's accurate and an engineer agrees with that, then we'll move forward with those dollars.
Is some of this engineering going to continue to cost and cost and cost? Because that'll take your 50,000 real quick.
That is not part of the engineering. The engineering, the really expensive stuff, is being fully funded by Long Tom's grants that they've already received from a couple of different sources.
It's going to cover everything.
Everything, correct.
I just think water is such a fundamental element of this, well, every community, but particularly of ours. And I want to make sure that we are very diligent in making sure that what we do doesn't
Yeah.
further complicate our water
Well,
issues.
come fire season, we really, really count on water.
Correct,
And you lower that river down too far,
right. Well, I
and you're
just
going
want
to
to,
screw yourself.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But I'd also like to point out that we don't currently have a good, we don't have this could improve the access to the river to draw water for the fire department. So, the funding for this is being covered by these other sources, and the city is taking advantage of the largesse of these other grants to actually improve our fire safety as a result of us following this particular
Well, thank you
project.
for all
Because
of
they're
your
going-
work, all of you who are doing it.
Because they're
diligence.
going to be incorporating
The dry wells.
the dry wells that actually allow them to pull the water out of the river that they don't currently have, and also potentially access it from both sides of the river in case there's any issues with the bridge. So
There may be a significant benefit in terms of health, safety, and welfare around the community with regard to fire suppression.
Wouldn't
if
that
this
be
comes in.
nice?
Well, I've heard this talked about, and I've heard it talked about, but
We're moving it forward. We're
we'll see
gonna,
when it happens.
that's exactly right. And
Nothing's happened for about 40 years, so if there's an opportunity to move it forward, I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, the
I've been
attribute,
carrying this candle through this windy
well,
rainstorm since 2015.
this is true.
so that list of attributes do include 2 dry wells, and TJ's meeting has met with chief on different things, and is going to bring this up as well. And I'd just like to make a comment too, that the city currently doesn't, it's city budget that pays for the O&M on the current water intake. So if things go wrong there, and it's also end of life, and the pumps are at the end of life, so there is no funding for O&M other than city money right now. So it's a way to be a positive thing for city with a new water intake, new pumps, and O&M funding, which it doesn't have now. So to me, those all seem like big selling points.
Thank you, John.
For this project.
What I'm looking for right now is other questions or significant concerns that you'd like to put on the record before we move forward.
What kind of water treatment plant are you going to put in to cover this new intake?
So we have the opportunity to tie this project to the moratorium issue with the water treatment. And this gives us a lot of leverage. when it amplifies our message when we go to try to get grant funding and additional money for that.
You're gonna keep with the membrane system or you're gonna go to something different?
We want to transition to another system. We want our engineer to tell us what that system would be, and we want to try to marry these two projects together. This is why I'm very thankful that we have an additional year. Keep in mind, we also received $1.5 million, which is our next agenda item. I want to make sure we leave some time for that. But we received $1.5 million from the Oregon Water Resource Department, specifically for the water treatment plant. And we'll be doing some additional grant funding and
Is this
fundraising.
something new and above?
No, this is money that Mayor Sheets had worked with Representative Gomberg to obtain. We unfortunately lost it. We
And then
got it
came
back. We got it back, and now it is partially at risk. But
What is your betting odds on this happening 2027? Or 2026, I should say.
zero.
Well,
Zero.
Nothing's,
2027,
Yes.
more than half,
As TJ knows, I'm not very happy about postponing for a year, but it makes a lot of sense.
right?
And again, whatever treatment plant the city invests in is going to be treating Long Tom Watershed Council. The intake's job is to get the water from the Long Tom to the treatment plant. It's really great to hear that the treatment plant is going to have a different approach because it has to process the water better.
Mhm.
But in some ways, they're incredibly integrated for funding and for design. In other ways, that whatever the city has to treat water, it's already treating the Long Tom water. Now it's just gonna have a better way of getting access to that water than it had before. But the treatment plant has been a problem for quite a while. and
It
it's gonna
has.
be great
Still
to
is.
have
So-
two new things to go together.
Despite
The
us
money
being
for the
told
intake.
everything was fine.
So let's talk about something for a moment. Let's say that we find out that we really do need a completely different type of intake because the membrane system doesn't function properly. And we really do need the lateral type that you were just talking about a few minutes ago. If no 1135 project existed,
had to
we'd
pay
be
for it.
fully responsible for the intake component and the rest of the treatment plant.
exactly right.
What we're doing right now is we're bolting a project that we must complete to one that we have the opportunity to complete that
And have
already
it
has some
funded by
funding attached to
somebody
it.
else.
What we want to make sure of is that we're not missing critical details and questions and concerns just because that money is available, right? We have to look at both pieces of this and make sure that we're thinking intelligently about the future of the city. So are there any other questions or concerns that you would like for Long Tom or an engineer to respond to?
Well, one thing that occurs to me, I don't want to make things more complicated, but when you started talking about that third option regarding the potential around the fish ladder and then Todd's concerns about commemorating it and all of that. So does this also include all of the foundational elements that are still out there that used to be the piers that held up the mill? Because if you go and look at that area there's a network of stem walls of different heights that are all that are kind of incorporated with that mill race. And it occurs to me that there could be, I could imagine a scenario in the future that would say, how about we retain all of that and actually just build some kind of like cool overlook, just like find some way to get funding to bolt on girders and do a little overlook where people could stand and look down at the river, and that would be where you'd have your commemoration and stuff. So maybe this is like, I don't know if this is related to it could be related to parks maybe, or is this, you know what I'm saying? If this was like a public space that where spectators could stand kind of above the foundational elements of that mill, and that be part of observing the fish ladder and the mill race and the river, and have your guardrail and a couple of placards and, you know.
We'll lift that up, Torrin, because that is a question for the Niestrums. Of course, they're the ones who own that structure. And it's a nice to have, and something from the city's perspective would be beneficial for the public. So we certainly could let them know that and ask them to consider that in their
If that
determination,
could
their
be
decision.
part of the, maybe there's some partnership there or something.
And I do think it's a good idea to bring that to the Parks Committee so that they can discuss that and provide a recommendation as well in case the Niestrums find that helpful.
That might help feed into the retaining question, you know.
And all of that concrete work that you're mentioning about is above water level, and it's really not part of the project at all. So that's all gonna stay there. And the mill race, whatever happens, that is quite separate from that. But we have talked to the landowners about at least sketching out for them what it would look like for, what's it called, and actually some frame for the type of,
Some kind of decking, like
some kind of decking. There's a name
Yeah,
for that.
that
Cantilever out,
Yes,
yeah.
that overlooks all
Thanks. I
that.
don't know why I
Yeah,
couldn't come up with that word, but,
yeah.
and so we're gonna try to work on like sketches for them to kind of see what that would look like too.
And keep in mind, that's economic development too. So EDC has an opportunity to talk about that. We definitely want to bring it to parks. This extended time frame we have gives us the opportunity to really have these discussions. I want to circle back and make sure I didn't miss anybody. So I heard fish passage. Will the fish actually come back, and will it actually provide the ecosystem benefits that we believe it's going to, that we were told it's going to? Number two, will the river narrow? Number three, what are the water quality impacts from the construction process? And will there be any benefits over time? And fourth, the foundation, speaking specifically about the historic piers holding up the mill. Are those of interest to the Niestrums, and we'll ask the Parks Committee to discuss those. Did I miss anything?
Well, you got 2 more dams up the way before you get to Fern Ridge.
They're already working on those ones now too.
Wonderful.
So the idea is to, yeah, that each one in turn, that there would be, it would make sense that,
You were one domino on the line, but they really kind of do have to get them all. Their goal is to do that over a long period of time. They started this discussion, I think, in like the 90s, really, when they were wanting to really do that. Might take them another 10 or 20 years to get there, right? But we're just one piece of it, and we have decisions to make in our little corner of the universe.
And a lot of these, I mean, we can go back and review the work that's been done in the past in the presentations. A lot of these questions were kind of addressed then. They keep coming up, so we can keep addressing them. But a lot of information is probably already included in the documentation that we've surrounded this project with. But yeah, there is about 160 miles of stream restoration and river restoration has gone. I don't know how they fit 160 miles upriver from here, but of working with private
Tributaries.
landowners and restoration work, and that will now have better access. If we're just talking about the fish, so that's one of the goals. But I think for the city, for the planning commission, city council, the opportunity to focus on economic development, quality of life, those kind of questions, and make sure those are part of the project carries a great weight for us.
Well, taking this dam out is going to lower the water in the sloughs and the bogs and the turtles and everything else that require to live there. Where are they going to go? I've heard the guys sit right here and say, "Oh, well, they'll adapt."
they still have
Well, the
the,
fish can adapt too. Then
no, they still, those sloughs still, my understanding, still will get water in the wintertime when all the levels rise.
That is an
We'll see.
additional question that we are going to ask not only Longtime Watershed Council, but also the Army Corps and our other subject matter experts to comment on. My job is to make sure that everything you have a concern about is incorporated into a public meeting and we receive an actual written response on that. None of us can speak to the merits or accuracy of those beliefs or potentials right now, but our job is just to make sure that we're doing our job and asking those questions.
And the engineer at the Army Corps did on the upstream culvert and how things flow through the berm will help answer those questions. They've done a
Absolutely.
lot of engineering on that, and they've done a lot of look and assessing water flow from off on the other side of the river coming into those sloughs. So they will have answers for those kind of questions.
if it's all true input,
Correct. No,
the way this government works lately, I don't know. I don't trust them.
I mean,
appreciate your concerns.
Okay, so let's talk about that grant.
Thank you.
That's-
So
Yeah, go
to be
something
clear, we're
different.
moving on to the next topic. So I want to provide,
It was 1.5, then it was 0. Now it's 1.5, and now it's what?
so I have a letter here for you that asking planning commission to take an action this evening to approve following the city council's meeting on the 24th. They're going to approve your approval. And then I will ask you all to sign this letter. Does that make sense? So you are approving this body's approval of this letter, but there's a second part to come, which is the city council's approval on the 24th. I will read to you now the letter. So this is dated for November 24th. It is being sent to the Legislative Fiscal Office, which is the office responsible currently for collecting all the information that will be provided to the legislators who will determine how funds will be cut. I want to be clear with you. 5% of all agencies' budgets must be cut. This includes appropriations that have not been paid out yet. Because we did not take this money in the last fiscal cycle, but rather in this upcoming one, we are also on that chopping block now. We would not have been if we received those monies previously. This is a situation that we're in. Rather than going to every single appropriation, us being one of them, and saying, we're going to cut you 5%, they're making some informed decisions about cutting some less than 5 and some more than 5%. We are in the more than 5% category. We are in the 20% category. So they want to remove $300,000 from our budget. They did not tell us why they arrived at this calculus, but I can tell you it does not take a lot of thinking to get there. We received this in the last biennium and did not even accept it, nor did we go through the detailed process of explaining to the agency what we would be doing. I've now done that over this past month, and we have gotten to the point where they're ready to release the funding. They must be looking at this and saying, well, if they didn't need it before, do they still need it now? Right? And so our job is to be very clear with them that, one, there was a good reason why we didn't use that previously. And number two, we absolutely need this money now. I will read for you the letter, and then I'll be asking for you to call for a motion. The subject is potential reduction of $300,000, City of Monroe Water Pre-Filter and Automated Controls Infrastructure Project. Dear members of the Legislative Fiscal Office, and give me one moment. Dear members of the Legislative Fiscal Office, the City of Monroe respectfully urges your consideration in maintaining full funding for our water pre-filter and automated controls infrastructure project, which received a $1.5 million direct legislative appropriation in the 2025 session. This project is critical to ensuring that Monroe's residents have access to safe and compliant drinking water. The planned upgrades address recommendations from the Oregon Health Authority related to organic concentrations in our source water and replace aging manual and computer control systems that are now obsolete. The city acknowledges that the initial legislative appropriation from the prior biennium was not utilized as quickly as anticipated due to the leadership transitions and limited administrative capacity at that time. Since then, Monroe has appointed a new city administrator, strengthened internal financial and project management systems, and invested in staff training to improve overall competency and accountability. The city has also begun collaborating with the city of Harrisburg to expand operational support and ensure project success. These efforts have positioned Monroe to deliver this project efficiently and responsibly once funds are released. A reduction of $300,000, representing roughly 20% of the total appropriation, would prevent the city from completing key treatment system components and automation upgrades, leaving the project partially constructed and the community's water system at continued risk of noncompliance and operational failure. Monroe is a small but growing community with limited local resources and no viable alternative source to absorb such a reduction. The legislature's investment represents a lifeline for our community's infrastructure and public health. We deeply value the state's partnership and the legislature's continued commitment to supporting small rural communities that depend on this funding to meet essential health and safety standards. On behalf of the residents of Monroe, we thank you for your past support and respectfully request that this critical project remain fully funded. Signatures will include the Planning Commission on the left side, which will show that it was signed 11/3. Really, what we mean is approved 11/3. Chair, Vice Chair, and all of the commissioners. On 11/24, the City Council will sign this themselves. I will be asking the City Council at next week's Monday meeting for a nod of support. This is not their approval, but just to let me know if they intend to approve this. And really, they'll be directing me to put it on the agenda. At that time, you all can start coming into the office and signing your half of this document. I will have the City Council sign it on the 24th, and off it will go the following day. Are there any questions before I recommend that the chair call for a motion?
When is the decision going to be made by the fiscal office?
We expect this to happen sometime in the beginning of the year coming up.
In January?
Yes, January through March. March is when the Ways and Means Committee really starts getting going on the current fiscal year.
Well, legislative session will be back in session.
In January, right? The fiscal office will be preparing all of this information between now and when the legislature is back in session to make this consideration. They will cut, most likely everybody.
5%.
Who knows? I'd like to get us down to 5%.
Yeah.
If nothing else, this was an opportunity. The mayor and I sat and discussed this when they gave us 24 hours to send a response in writing. We sent that response in writing, and the Legislative Fiscal Office has a 3-sentence response, which is all we were allowed at that time to consider. We are pushing this forward because we feel it's critically important to make sure that our legislators, thankfully Representative Gomberg is on the Ways and Means Committee, that they have the information necessary to advocate for us. I do see that the mayor, this is your call. I see the mayor has his hand up.
So I've actually talked to Gomberg's office, the chief of staff, and Gomberg is on board. He will push hard. They are supporting us 100%. They
Yeah.
will do everything that they can.
That's
They've
great.
been very supportive so far.
And I am planning to ask the Benton County Commissioners if they would like to sign.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
So
do I
should I
have a
prepare a
motion
second
to
one for-
approve?
Can I quick, two quick, they'll be quick, I promise, but very well written, clearly stated. Is there any
Sorry.
incentive or reason to include how this might, I mean, can we tie the moratorium or ending moratorium to this at all? With the state so pushing so hard for housing, is that an issue to raise? Or in some ways I can see we can't really tie it to the moratorium issue.
It's a really good point, John. If you can give me a way that we can tie it in a logical way, we get very little time with them. I think this letter is already a little long.
Yeah, and I don't think we should complicate it.
Yeah,
I think we just keep it clean and it's
Short and sweet. So I really wrestled, I
Yeah.
wordsmithed this to death.
Yeah.
This is almost a full 2-page letter when I first put it down.
Keep it clean.
No, that makes sense. I know the state is pushing so hard for, so, but you don't want to complicate that.
What we could do is we could absolutely include something about the benefit of housing. That's like something I can add into an existing sentence. Absolutely.
If it works, but I wouldn't work, getting it signed is probably.
Yeah.
Well, we have the
Having it
opportunity to
signed
add
makes
these
more
things
sense.
tonight though, because remember, you
Yeah,
guys will be
right, yeah.
signing after the city council directs me to put this on the agenda. So right now we have the opportunity to add some verbiage.
Okay. And the other thing is it's going to be really important to make sure this money is spent and invested quickly. And there may be some ways, and looking at the whole picture of stuff that's going on, is use the money, if it has to be spent within the next 9 months or some year, to invest some money in an overall project, even if it means our other partners holding on to some money and using it later to backfill. I mean, it provides some flexibility, but there's also some urgency to get this money invested, I would think.
We must spend this money before June of 2027. So we have the full fiscal cycle essentially to do that. It's important to note that the time that we've bought ourselves with the Army Corps of Engineers project is very beneficial because it allows us to sync this up with that. And this could actually very, very nicely meld with the water intake funding that we have with the Long Tom. All of those things are now possible, but weren't previously.
It's not so specific that there's only one thing it can be spent on.
No, it is restricted. It's absolutely restricted. Yep. We told them what we're gonna spend it on. We told them that we're gonna
Those two
use it
items.
on the aging manual and computer control systems, as well as on all of the technology necessary to treat the organic concentrations in our source water. That may mean transitioning to another type of treatment system.
And that was actually all the wording was the original wording that we used to request the money in the first place. So, yeah, it's all in line.
Yeah, it is restricted. And so I had to go and make sure when we submitted the full proposal, because when they say they're gonna give us money, we still had like a 25-page like document to complete and fill out. And we had to tell them exactly what we're doing with it. We had to go back to that original intent and make sure that went into this, which is also reflected here. So we don't have a lot of room, but to John's point, we're gonna use this first in place of where unrestricted money might have gone.
Do they need to know that we're 723 people? That's why we can't absorb a $300,000 hit?
Mentioned that when I went and testified, I told them exactly what our population was
Mhm.
to make the full thing.
I think that might be an important piece, just because, small but growing community, small, 4,000, 3,000. 723, yeah, they need the money.
Well, you're not right next door like Philomath and Corvallis or Adair and Corvallis.
Linda has a question.
No, I move that we accept this letter and approve it and sign it.
Second.
Have a first and a second. Any discussion? Or we already did discussion?
We've done their discussion.
We discussed it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Where's
Thank you. This will be going to the city council next week.
all right. Can we
Thank you
bang
very
it?
much for
Bang it.
doing that.
Oh, was that it? Was that our last?
Well, we're done anyway.
I don't know, was
Tired
it?
of it.
I think it was.
We've heard enough of you tonight.
Thank you. Oh, there's commissioners' comments. You missed that.
I have no comment. My comment is no comment tonight. I got no questions.
I want to thank,
Don't turn up the microphone, but I have one question. Is the partition for the former Woodward House, is that something that's under commission?
The partition has been submitted. That is a procedural step. That doesn't come before the planning commission. I will brief you on it. It was submitted on October 14th. I have 30 days to deem it complete and then work with the applicant to ensure that all the contents are there. I will bring that to you to make sure that you're aware of it and that the public is aware of it, but that's a ministerial administrative decision. And
Well, one of the things that did come up was if it's partitioned with the truck lot separate from the building structure, there was some discussion about possibly using the partition to raise concerns about what the current use of it is. And I don't know if that fits or that's appropriate or proper. or not.
can you repeat that? I apologize.
So the new partitions come. If the partition is to
Sell.
take the current, sell the current area that's truck parking lot from the section that is where the old plant was. That might be an opportunity to revisit the use of truck parking area in that zone.
Because it's in the overlay. It's in the, and that,
Yeah.
and there was a question whether or not it was proper that they were given that they were just given the go ahead to park all their trucks there to begin with, just because somebody parked a truck there years before. So
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Being an industrial site, one of the uses of an industrial site is the ability to park trucks. So there is nothing that I can look to in the land use code and say that they're violating. However, I will let you know that a number of residents have taken significant issue with the trucks parked there. One person did complain that there was a big barrel of oil from when they drained the oil from one of the vehicles and that the rainwater had been pouring into that uncovered
Oh.
bucket and that it was now pouring onto the ground. I did report that to the Department of Environmental Quality, and I did provide that individual with the same number and contact information to report it themselves. Those are the kinds of things that we can and should do.
No, it's still industrial.
That's correct. Yeah, it's still industrial. They have the right to use that property.
Well, one of the things that we discussed a long time ago about that was, did they change the use? And they didn't change the use. The one that was changing the use for Olson's. So
Right.
we couldn't tell them that they couldn't park trucks there. They couldn't.
Exactly.
But this is a subject for future conversations when
Yeah.
you're talking about your zoning.
Triple bang.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
I don't like the fact we don't go over minutes anymore. And I know what your point is. AI's, but I also know AI is not always correct in some of their verbiage.
Oh, no, sir. Let me be clear. So we have a summary. Now that we have the new website out, a summary of meetings will be on the website.
But a month late. Are we gonna go back and,
Yes, absolutely. So in the last couple of months, we're going to go back and revisit those. You do have minutes to review. There will be a summary in your packet every month from now on. We will circle back and make sure that we hit on those. What that summary is going to entail is actions that were taken and directions that were provided to staff. It'll be 1-2 pages maximum. What you have now is all of the meetings fully recorded and available on YouTube as well as on our city website. So you can click on the minutes button and it'll take you right to that meeting recording. You can watch. We now have a YouTube.
The city's had a YouTube channel.
We've always had a YouTube. We just never used it. Now staff is taking the full meeting recording, uploading it to YouTube, and that YouTube link is what appears on our website. So if somebody clicks on minutes, they go right to YouTube. They can watch the whole thing wherever they want to dial in. And the report out essentially is just a summary telling you what you told me to do and what actions you took.
Yeah. I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
Well,
YouTube stars.
Short pants for the meeting.
YouTube stars.
Short wearing tuxedo shirt.
I want to
you know the word
publicly,
bite me? That's what,
I want to publicly thank fellow commissioners for all the work you're doing on the grants and on the back. I mean, it's thankless, but it's necessary and I appreciate it. And also kudos to our little town that just opened a little coffee shop Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Little Kepi Knack Knack. It's doing fun little things. We, at the Heritage Hall, Kepi Knack Knack. Janice is, got between that and we have a massage now and we have a
What is the zoning
nail
Heritage Hall?
salon.
Is that residential or are we?
No, it's not
Restaurant?
residential.
It is, I believe it's commercial.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a-
not residential.
Nobody checked with me on that one, but nobody's complained either yet.
That's the final bang.
I want to say, thanks for getting the website up. It was so great to go there.
Agenda